Good morning. My name is Will Robinson. I'm the chairman of the 2011 Chambers Legislative Affairs Committee. It is my pleasure to welcome everyone here to the preview of this upcoming legislative session. You'll find at your seat the 2011 Chambers Legislative Priorities. This is the document. The front part, or the part with the most words, is our legislative policy statement, and on the other side is our executive summary. Our team, our commando team, will be headed up to Tallahassee in mid-March to work on the following priorities, which include technical school funding formula revisions. We need to make it performance-based. MTI is currently underfunded by $4 million. Support a state research and tax credits to encourage greater R&D in Florida. We would also like to double international trade in the next 5 years and ratify trade agreements for Port Manatee with Panama, Colombia, and South Korea. And finally, since 1998, $3 billion has been diverted away from the Transportation Trust Fund for other purposes. Let's keep it intact this session. Legislators' job creation has to be a substantive centerpiece. Every time you cast your vote in a bill, ask yourself and your colleagues, does it strengthen free enterprise, does it create jobs, or does it undermine our free enterprise system? Now I'd like to introduce our legislative delegation. Legislators, please keep your thoughts as concise as you can. We have approximately 5 minutes for each one of you all. And we're going to have question and answers at the very end. I'd like to save as much time as possible. We have a great crowd here for questions and answers, and we have a microphone when we get to that point. So I will introduce first up to the podium Senator Mike Bennett, Senate District 21. Senator.
I was handed a note, please turn your cell phones off, so you'll know my wife and the rest of the people from the Hope Domestic Violence Center are here, and they collect cell phones to give out, so we're assuming if your cell phone goes off, you are volunteering it. Dee, my wife in the back, she'll be happy to collect them. We do. I want to thank everybody for coming. It's one of the few times we get 90% of the delegation to show up, and especially the ones from Tampa, Arthenia, and Darrell Rasan. It's very, very difficult for them to get down here for this, but we do appreciate it. It's going to be an interesting session, obviously, and a lot of people will talk about the budget and the different budget problems we've got. I'm not going to talk about Wears Creek. Nobody wants to hear about Wears Creek down here in the budget at the same time, but there's a lot of things that we have to do in the budget. And one of them was mentioned earlier, some of the rebalancing of some of the formulas on how some things are funded, and whether it's education or whether it's state's attorneys. We don't necessarily follow a committed budget across the state in the funding formulas, and so we're going to be looking at those real hard to try to balance them out. And since there's not a bigger piece of pie, see if we can't distribute and redistribute the piece of pie up there that we're going to deal with. So I think I'm going to save most of my comments for the question and answer period later on. I know some of the newer members I don't have a little bit more to talk about because of their session. Senator Dieter and I are a little old hand at this, and so I think most of our comments will be waited till the end. So I appreciate it. Thanks for coming out.
Senator Nancy Dieter, District 23.
Thank you. Good morning. I call this the Optimist Club. I'm surprised to see this many people still in business, and happy to have you here this early. And it's going to be our goal to keep you in business. And I've looked over your legislative platform, and frankly, I'm trying not to go down that road too much because we're trying to focus on what we're doing to help you. And we are pretty much, I know as the chair of Commerce, we're pretty much headed in the same direction you are. I'm very thrilled to work on the Panama Canal. I think it benefits Port of Manatee. It benefits Port of Tampa. I have gone to Panama and seen the new canal, signed treaties on behalf of the Everglades port. But one of the greatest things Florida has going for it is that we have 13 seaports, and we want to take advantage of all of our assets. So that will be huge for us. We're totally on the same page there. We are going to do everything we can to make Florida business friendly, and frankly, I think Florida is business friendly. What keeps a lot of companies from moving here is that we have been unable to provide an educated workforce. So that's where you guys factor in with, let's give USF some help, let's give our local K through 12 some help, because we've seen companies go to North Carolina because they were offered lots of incentives, but they couldn't produce the workforce that companies need. So that is really job number one in recruiting, because when it comes to other incentives, taxes, business-friendly climate, I think we already provide that. My committee, and as chair of commerce this year, I've taken on a huge task, which is going to make me like not the most popular person in the state. But I think that reform, bad times are a good time to reform things that should have been done in the past. Our unemployment comp fund historically had $2 billion in it, and people filed claims and we paid them, and it went along pretty well for decades. But in bad times, when one out of every 18 Floridians is unemployed, our $2 billion went to zero, and then we found out there's something worse than zero. We now borrow hundreds of millions of dollars a month to pay those claimants. And thanks to some federal changes, the claimants can now file claims for 99 weeks. This is not fair to business, and it's not fair to the unemployed either. You put your name in a computer, nobody asks you to prove that you're looking for work. We understand that jobs are scarce, but we automatically mail you a check or direct deposit the money to your account. I think we can do better than that. We're going to level the playing field for businesses, because claimants are automatically considered the winner unless you hire an attorney. So if you own a business and you've filed appeals, you've probably lost 100 times out of 100. So we're going to make the playing field equal. And then when it comes to the unemployed, I don't think it's smart of us to have them just put their name in a computer and go home and receive checks. It works on your mental health. After 6 months, you're depressed. So we are going to do a skills assessment upon their first application, and then offer some training even via internet to get them qualified and to show them a little hope at the end of the tunnel. So we will be totally reforming unemployment compensation, which affects every business in the state, and 1.1 million unemployed Floridians. So there'll be a lot of difference of opinion on that subject, but I think what we've seen why other states fail is they don't have the courage to make the hard decisions when they need to be made. And we're going to be doing that, and it's not going to make everybody happy. But I, too, like Senator Bennett, will wait for your questions and would like to take this opportunity to congratulate Senator Bennett on being the Senate President Pro Tem. Manatee consistently turns out some big leaders. I guess in Sarasota we just go to the opera and the ballet, but you've had... So I look forward to working with Senator Bennett this year. Thank you.
It is my pleasure to introduce to the podium three representatives for the first time. Jim, I know you've been in my chair at least, but this is your first time here as a legislator, so it's really my pleasure and our pleasure to welcome you all here as part of our team. And so first up, Representative Jim Boyd, House District 68.
Thank you. I just told Senator Bennett he's probably going to learn to be a pretty good dancer with his new job anyway. So it is a privilege and a pleasure to be here. I was, as Will said, involved for so long with the Legislative Committee of the Chamber. I know how important business is to our community and to our state. So I'm really grateful and thankful to be on this side of the game now, and hopefully we can work together to make some real change. I'm excited about what's going on. I know as a freshman I'm probably a little bit naive. My two senator friends are well experienced in all this, and probably will bring me back down to earth. But it's an amazing experience. It's a very exciting experience, but there is a whole lot to be done and a whole lot to learn. Somebody used the analogy, for us, it's like drinking out of a fire hose, and I think that's probably pretty close. But there's so much to learn. I've just decided, I've got to take it piece by piece and committee by committee and work through it. So that's what I'm about. I want to tell you a little bit about the committees I'm on, and I will be I'll try to be as brief as I can for questions. But I'm on the Economic Affairs Committee, which is one of the major committees the speakers put together this year. So I'm really excited about that because that affects business and economy and the like in Florida. I'm on Agriculture Appropriations, which is exciting for me because our community is so heavy into agriculture and we're so dependent upon it, not only in Manatee County and Sarasota County, but in Florida as well. So, excuse me, I'm excited about that. Agriculture Policy Committee I'm on, and then I'm on Banking and Insurance, which, because of my background, hopefully I can add some things there. And then on Health and Human Services Quality Subcommittee. So that affects a lot of the health and human services organizations in Florida. So that's where I'll be. And, people are asking me questions, well, what about this? What about that? And I can't speak for my colleagues, but, we are so deep in our committees right now and trying to learn the issues and learn what's workable and what's not workable that I haven't had a whole lot of time yet to look at, for instance, Representative Stubbe's committees and what he's doing and how he's doing and what that's all about. So as we move along, I'm sure we'll all learn a little bit more about what each other are doing. But there's a lot of variety in committees up here. So today, hopefully, we'll be able to answer any questions you might have along that. I've also learned, as I've been told by my friends in the Senate for years and years, what starts here really never ends up there. So, I will tell you, from watching it from our side, don't get too freaked out yet. We're gonna work through it, and at the other end, it may be a whole lot different than it looks like when it started. And there's at least been a couple of bills that you're probably familiar with that have already gone that route. There is a sense, I really feel it, a sense of less regulation, less government interference, less spending, less taxing, and let's get people back to making decisions for themselves, their families, and their businesses and get government out of it. I'm very, very excited about that. As you know, watching Governor Scott, and many of you know him better than I do, I think that's what he's certainly all about, and it's going to be kind of fun to work in that process with his office to see where that all unfolds. Tech school funding was mentioned, just a couple of issues I want to mention real quickly. I will lean on our friends in the Senate. Senator Lynn is the chairman of that committee. I've met with Representative Proctor, the chairman of the Education Committee, and Representative O'Toole and a couple others about tech school funding and kind of balancing it out across the state rather than the inequities that we have faced since I was on the committee, a long time ago. So I do sense there's some movement this year in that, in the House side. There's a lot of interest in trying to get it back to some equitable type situation, and then we'll be working with our friends in the Senate to try to pull that off. So I'm hopeful we'll have some momentum there this year. We're also working on a little bit for the port. We all know how important the port is to our economy and to our community. And so I'm excited to be part of some work there, some legislation. Hopefully they'll be good for the port and good for our community. One other thing I'll mention, then I'll sit down, or two other quick things. PIP fraud is a huge issue in Florida, and many of you are affected by it. Your insurance policies will start to have assessments for PIP fraud on them, per car, per driver, and it's $1 billion cottage industry in Florida right now, and it's just way out of control. So in our Committee on Insurance, we're working on some things there, and as well on citizens' property insurance. We've got to, and I know I'm in the insurance business, but we have got to bring back a vibrant, competitive property insurance market in Florida, and we're going to work really hard this year to try to get, government, perhaps as a market of last resort, not a market of choice, but in doing that, bring a competitive market back, because that's what we all need and that's what we all expect. So I'm really excited to be your representative. I'm really happy to be also part of this chamber and this good group. So anytime, call my office, call me, my numbers, anything I can do to help you, I'd be honored to, and we'll be glad to answer some questions later. Thank you very much.
Representative Ray Pilon, House District 69.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. You all really get up this early all the time. I mean, I remember Pat Glass, when we were commissioners and sat on the Peace River Water Board, we always met at 10 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, I like that. My chairman from Peace River is here this morning. Good to see you, Mr. Chappie. Well, Yes, I do represent part of Manatee County, and I'm very proud to be a member of the chamber through the Peace River Manitoba Regional Water Supply Authority. I just want to mention very quickly that, yes, indeed, Representative Stubbe, Representative Boyd, and Representative Roussan, particularly with Representative Stubbe and Boyd, our districts touch, so we were going to work very closely together. I've been appointed because of my background to all things judiciary and all things water. I'm on the full Judiciary Committee, I'm on the Justice Appropriations Committee, and on the Subcommittee for Criminal Justice, as well as the Subcommittee for Ag and Natural Resources, which is Ag, Natural Resources, Water, Environment, all of those things, and was very fortunate to be appointed to by the Speaker of the House to the Select Committee on Water Policy that's going to take a look at that very strong economic driver for our area and for our state over a 2-year period. I do want to mention just yesterday that Speaker Cannon also, we hear a lot about reorganization of government and things getting combined and efficiencies. Well, the Speaker yesterday announced that he's forming a select committee on government reorganization to take a pragmatic and I think a very needed look at what's really real and what works and what doesn't, including the cabinet, by the way, according to his memo. So I look forward to working with the full delegation. I look forward to working with you and this community with all your goals, because your goals are my goals. I've been in this area, moved to Bradenton in 1974. Live right on the border now at University in Longwood Run. And I look forward to having your input as well, because we can't do it alone. As you've kind of seen by the other comments, it gets very busy up there, and you know that. I've been fortunate of having been up there for a few years working for my other organization. So one of my first jobs when I got up there was to help my colleagues that haven't been up there so much, like Representative Stubbe and Representative Boyd, to let them know where the men's rooms were. So I thank you very much. Look forward to your questions.
Representative Greg Stubbe, Representative Greg Stubbe, District 67.
I have to comment on that. And I'll tell you a quick story. Yeah, well, I'll tell you a quick story, and I know we want to get to your questions, but this is kind of entertaining for you all. I presented my first bill before committee last week. So, I prepared for hours like a good attorney would do. I did research on what the prior law was. I read the bill. I got up there, and it's actually in the Knott building, which is in the Senate side. It's a huge committee room with this huge dais where the representatives and senators sit at. And there's a huge background area, and there was quite a few people there, and I walked up to this huge podium, and I started to talk, and I'm getting into my argument, and the chairman of the committee goes, Representative Stubbe, your mic is not on. And then he goes, welcome to the Florida House. And I said, thank you very much. And then I continued. But so there is quite the learning curve that goes on as long as pressing the button on the microphone. But it is quite an honor and a privilege to represent you and represent Manatee, Sarasota, and Hillsborough County. I have the largest district in the state. I go from Riverview, Apollo Beach, Sun City Center, Ruskin, East Manatee County, and I go all the way down to Clark Road in Sarasota. So I have quite a diverse district, and it truly is an honor to be a representative in this state, and it truly is an honor to represent you in the State House. Tell you real quick what my committees are. I sit with Representative Pilon on the full Judiciary Committee. Last committee week, we talked about immigration. The whole committee was spent on immigration and where our current law sits as it relates to immigration and where we think we might want to go. It was a policy and workshop discussion on all the issues related to that, the law enforcement piece of that, the work piece of that, and a lot of people don't realize, I didn't prior to the hearing, that we already have law that it is required that a business cannot hire an illegal immigrant to our state. And I didn't really realize that that was already statute. So but it's a very bland statute as far as having teeth of enforcement. So we're going to be looking at that. I also sit on the subcommittee for civil justice. One of the things we talked about last week is the rulemaking authority and the power that the Florida Supreme Court has, quite an unbridled power as it's compared to other states and in the U.S. Federal government, to make rules and enact those rules. There's not a check on the House side other than being able to repeal rules that they put forward. So we're going to be looking at that in the Civil Justice Committee. I also sit on healthcare appropriations. And as you know, with the current budget woes and healthcare being such a big part of our state's budget, we really are going to have a really tough job this next coming session looking at healthcare appropriations. What our chairman of that committee did was he went and told all the agency heads that he wanted all of them to come to us with a proposal for cutting 14% of their budget. So you can understand the type of times that those agency heads have to go and deal with. And to give you a quick example, one of the things that they came back and presented to our committee was they wanted to do away with all of the rape crisis centers in the entire state of Florida. And as you know, that's something that's pretty significant to our state and a great service that we have through our state. So there's going to be a lot of tough decisions that are going to be made. I also sit with Representative Pilon on the Select Committee on Water Policy. I think our state, especially being the state of Florida, where we have all of the water resources that we have, it should be now and is going to be a huge issue in the future of our state as it relates to water policy, drinking water, and then the constraints between agriculture needing the water for the food supplies and our residents. So there's going to be a lot of big issues that committee is going to also face. And then I sit on energy and utilities. We will be looking at a comprehensive energy policy this year. They're going to be doing some deregulation in the telecom industry, which I know everybody, from what I've been told, is in agreement on the bill that's being proposed. So huge issues, and I'm quite happy with the committees that I got assigned to, because as you can see, the diverse issues that I'm going to have an opportunity to be a part of: energy, utilities, water, healthcare appropriations, tort reform, immigration. So if there are issues that come up that are important to you and that are important to this community, please feel free to contact me. Everybody has my cell phone number. Our office numbers are on the website, and I look forward to representing you, and I look forward to your questions. Thank you very much.
And last but certainly not least, Representative Darrell Roussan, House District 55.
Thank you very much. I'm so honored that he said last but not least. One thing I do have to ask, though, is, are there any Democrats in the room? Amen. I look at the table up here.
He's going to be cleaning up afterwards.
Well, in truth, I hope we are cleaning up afterwards, because that's really all we can do. 81 to 39 in the House. They tell us shut up and sit down. You are not allowed to chair any committee. You may not vice chair any committee. The most you can hope for is ranking member on the committee. But I'm really excited about this session, believe it or not. We really have nowhere to go but up. There's going to be a lot of pain. There will be a lot of bloodletting. It is not a pretty picture in Tallahassee with the economy in this state. Dr. King told us that only when it is dark can you see the stars, and that it is bleakest before dawn. And truly, I think that's the period that we're in. I'm very excited about the committee assignments that I got. I think that last session I was probably the most successful Democratic representative in the Bay Area, out of Cruz and Reed and Hillsborough and Heller, Kreisman and Long and Fitzgerald in these areas. 4 of my 6 bills became law, 2 standalones, 2 in proviso, and I spotted a turkey, and I brought that turkey back to my district. I brought $1 million back. That workforce matched $1 million. That created jobs for at-risk youth in District 55. I'm very proud of that. My committee assignments, as far as I'm concerned, are excellent. I serve on Maine appropriations. That's big, y'all. We get to slice and dice at the end of the day, and I'm very honored to serve on that. I serve on Justice Appropriations. This is my 3rd session as ranking member. And you know the big 3 in the budget are corrections, education, and health. Those are the big 3 in the state of Florida budget. I get to assist Representative Rich Glorioso in carving up on Justice Appropriations, Department of Corrections, Department of Juvenile Justice, state attorneys, public defenders, guardian ad litem, all of the courts from Supreme on down. Those agencies, Florida Highway Patrol, Florida Department of Law Enforcement, they will come to us for their budget. And frankly, we're in for a new day. If Secretary Edwin Buss, and I was scheduled to go up there, I wasn't going to be here today, I was going to be in Indiana, but for the weather, they weren't sure we'd be able to get back out. But if we do just 1/3 of the programs that he's done with the prisoners in the state of Indiana, we're in for a revolution. I've always said where our spending has been wrong. We've spent more on the back end, on incarceration, interdiction, and enforcement, as opposed to prevention, education, and treatment. And so we're in for a new day with Department of Juvenile Justice. Secretary Wansley Walters out of Miami has done some excellent things with civil citation programs instead of arrests for juveniles. I think some juvenile detention centers will close because our spending will shift. And I'm excited about that. I also serve on Business and Consumer Services Subcommittee. That's every business and professional in the state of Florida that is licensed through the Department of Business and Professional Regulation. That's important because we're looking at regulations. Some of you heard Governor Scott in his inaugural speech say that we're going to stop strangling businesses and help our businesses, particularly small and moderate-sized businesses, prosper. So we're looking at regulations that hinder development of business. I also serve on transportation and highway safety, and I'm excited about that. Light rail, issues of construction, roads, transportation infrastructure, and those kinds of things will be coming to that committee. And the one committee I serve on that meets year-round is the Legislative Budget Conference Committee, and that's the committee that makes adjustments to the budgets when we're out of session and in between session. So I portend a good year, but I want people to understand it's not going to be pretty. We'll have to do the best we can with what we got. In closing, I've filed 8 bills. Not all will come out of drafting. My big 3 are the drug court bill. Some of you know that OPAGA did a study. There's $19 million in unspent funds that will have to go back to the government if we don't spend it to increase opportunities for treatment as opposed to incarceration. I filed the bill to relax our sentencing guidelines so that more people are eligible for treatment. It's just a common sense bill. I'm proud of the bill that came out of this area. Sheriff Stubbe brought me the issue about pawn shops and how we might tighten our regulation on people who sell items to pawn shops so that we can make apprehension quicker and deterrence greater. And also the K2 spice. I'm the co-sponsor with Representative Janet Atkins on K2 spice, and you've been hearing about that on the news. Now we got bath salts. I'll be honest with you, one reason why I got on the bill was because I don't like the way the bill is written. And one way to influence it is to be a prime co-sponsor of it. I'm not sure we need to increase more felonies in the state. And I know that passing this bill is a Band-Aid solution because the chemists will come out with something different as soon as this bill becomes law. But it will give me an opportunity to advocate and to massage and to make it more impactful and greater. So thank you very much for having me this morning.
Well, now it's your time. We are ahead of schedule, but we are going to end promptly at 9 o'clock. So we have about 32 minutes for Q&A. At your table there, you'll see our agenda, and there's some guidelines of asking questions. The most important guideline is to step up to the microphone and ask a question, not merely give a statement. So I'm just going to filibuster here till someone stands up and decides to get to the microphone and ask our very first question. Sir, could you come to the mic, please? Thank you. And if you wouldn't mind directing your question to a specific representative or senator.
Senator Bennett, I don't know if this mic is on. Okay. Right, okay. First of all, my name is John Zimnicki. I am the chairman of the Board of Governors for MTI and the MTI Foundation. And when I was here last meeting, we were 6-time national champs, and I'm here to tell you that we are now 7-time national champs. And I'm here for one reason only, is to kind of change the formula for the funding for MTI and for all tech centers. We run anywhere between $3.5 and $4 million in the red each year, and we just want some accountability because we are performance-based, we have been, we're winning, and we just need help. So basically, this is to you, Senator Bennett, but I know all of you on this committee are going to be dealing with funding. We know the money's there. We just need to change the formula. Thank you very much.
Some of those decisions are made locally as to your funding. Some are made statewide. And the trick is to get more money in the pot. And I've got a bill out this this year to help you to get more state funds. Currently, you get no credit for having kids graduate with a GED, and it's dropout prevention, and so we are going to give you a 75% credit for that student rather than the 100% you would get for a normal student, and rather than the 0 that you currently get. I think you need to do a better sales job on the tech centers. I think that, you know, you emerged, you were one of the first, and now there are many in all 67 counties, and we're seeing them in a different light. It's not the old VOTEC, it's career prep, and that is where we want to put our money, so we will look to change your formula.
Good morning. Representative Pilon, we'll take it under advisement at the chamber to see if we can make this a brunch next year. I think Charles Clapsaddle would appreciate that as well. I'm Mary Ruiz. I'm President and CEO of Manatee Glands, and I have a question for the two representatives who are serving on health committees. We need to tackle the Medicaid spending problem. Florida attempted a solution, a demonstration project in Jacksonville and Broward, which from the provider perspective was an unmitigated disaster, and even more so from the consumer's perspective. And I guess I'm wondering what the appetite is to really look at Medicaid reform from the ground up, not take just a simple expansion of what's already failed and really do the hard work of coming up with a sensible Medicaid plan that costs us less. I'm a little concerned that the easy answer will be the one that can get taken up in a lot of pressure, and I think we'll end up paying for it years now. So what's the appetite for really doing the ground-up work, as opposed to taking an expansion of the current reform?
Who wants it?
I think they're similar. You're talking about the bill that was presented last year, correct?
Yes.
I think there's going to be a similar bill this year, and I think the appetite is there. And if you look at our budget, as I mentioned before, one of the largest pieces of the pie is healthcare, and the largest piece of that pie is Medicaid. So we're going to have to look at some form of reform in that area. And I do think that similar to the bill that you saw last year, I think is probably going to be presented. But the way things are kind of moving in the House because of the election and the time frames are so much shorter, is I think you're going to see it come as a committee bill. So I think the committees are going to work up these issues, have workshops on these issues. It may be my healthcare appropriations committee or maybe another committee, but the committees are going to work those issues up and then present a committee bill. But I do think there's an appetite to do it, absolutely.
So we do like the House bill last year. We weren't so fond of the Senate, so I'm going to ask the senators to respond to the same question.
Senator Bennett?
You know, Mary, the appetite is absolutely there. I mean, I think we all know that we've got to do something about Medicaid. The problem with it is you have to assume that everybody, 90% of the people who serve on these committees in Tallahassee are not necessarily Medicaid, you know, professionals. That's not what they do. So oftentimes people come up and say, well, geez, we need you to change this particular thing on Medicaid. And we say, what do you want us to do? Give us some actually written suggestions. Tell us specifically what you want to do. Because oftentimes we don't know what the solutions are. I don't work in healthcare. I certainly don't work in mental health. My wife thinks I need it, but I don't do it.
We can help you anytime, Senator.
So I can get a free visit, maybe a free pass.
Absolutely.
But, you know, so we're looking for specific ideas. But what people don't understand, and this is where it's really tough, everything I give to you, I have to take away from someone else. Okay? And that's really when you get down to it. It's like, you know, Nancy was talking a while ago about unemployment. I'm introducing legislation again this year that says that, you know, if you're going to go down and file for unemployment, you should have to pass the same random drug test that he has to pass to pay into unemployment. I think it's fair. And that sounds so good until Ray Dowling fails her test and she can no longer feed her kids. Because we're not just going to punish her, we're going to punish the kids. And that's where you get into these problems. So if you can come up with specific ideas that you think would do that and would help, and where you can really help us is on cutting out some of the regulation that is not necessary, that leaves the dollars back in your hand. When you look at some of the regulation and the duplicate regulation that we deal with, whether it's in your area, whether it's land planning or whatever, those are things that we could cut out. I was looking at making a list the other day of, as you know, growth management and those kinds of things are my issue. And just on water, you have the water and soil districts, you have the DEP, you have the water management districts, you have the DCA, and it just goes on. And everybody reviewing the same damn piece of water, a little bit of water. And it's just absolutely insane. So if you can give us suggestions, that we can get more dollars directed back to the patient, we would really be interested in those.
And those proposals are prepared. Bob Sharp, former director of Medicaid, and the head of Florida Council for Community Mental Health has that list. My concern is that the larger out-of-state healthcare firms will get a better hearing than the local folks who are making the suggestions that you're advising us to make. So heads
then
up
I would
and help them out.
I would suggest if you find people up here who don't listen to you and don't take your input, let the rest of us know, okay? Because we are concerned.
Well, I'm hoping you'll talk to your peers. I'm not worried about you.
And I think that our peers, if they don't listen, then you should let us know. Certainly in the Senate, if you have other senators who aren't listening, we might want to use the club in my office. I can guarantee I can get you the appointment.
I appreciate you.
Representative Boyd wanted to make a comment.
Mary, I just didn't want you to think I was ducking and piling it all on Greg's shoulders, but on appropriation side, they're already talking about it. On the policy side, we haven't gotten there yet, but I would echo Senator Bennett's comments. You know, we talked yesterday, but get us some information so we can introduce that into the discussion, because we haven't even gotten to Medicaid or mental health yet on the policy side. So I'd love to hear from you on that.
John Horn.
Thank you. Good morning. John Horn, Anna Maria Oyster Bar. Senator Dieter, my question is to you, not even a question, it's a comment about the unemployment compensation. Please stay on that fight. Please stay on that fight. We are losing unemployment compensation claims like you wouldn't believe. I used to have a rating and a mod rating that was the lowest it possibly could be. We are losing claims that are just ridiculous. We fired 2 gentlemen for stealing from us, caught them on camera. They filed unemployment. I fought both of them. They were both given unemployment compensation. I appealed both of them. We lost the first one because we had not told him he couldn't steal. It was in the handbook and the good book, I might add. But we had not physically told him he could not steal from us.
Yes.
So the second appeal came up, and instead of claiming that he stole from us, we said it was improper food handling to put it in his car and take it home for a party. And we won that one. So we won one for improper food handling. We lost one for stealing. They both stole. It's ridiculous.
Well,
but there's so many claims, and I don't mean to stop. There's so many claims, they're just, sure.
I agree
sure.
with you, and it's a little known problem. And this is going to depend a lot about how the media decides to portray this. And today, it's a complex issue, so I did an editorial and sent it to every paper, and I don't know if it's been in the Bradenton Herald, but it was in the Sarasota Herald today with a nice headline that said, we're going to try to help the unemployed. Yesterday, I had a call from Tallahassee, why are you punishing poor people? So, you know, there's going to be funny spin on this, and I'm about to be the queen of mean. But legislatively and legally, the process is deliberately tilted in favor of the claimant. So pretty much it's an automatic for the claimant to win all the time. I have documented cases from attorneys who have filed appeals. They had a lady who drove a bus for Head Start. So she's got under 5-year-old kids on the bus. And as part of her outlined duties, at the end, after dropping all the kids off and bringing the bus back, she has to walk through the bus and make sure there's no kids left. Well, she skipped that step and left a 3.5-year-old on the bus for asleep in extreme heat for many, many hours, and luckily the child lived. So they fired her, and she appealed, and she won. Like, nobody told you this. It's the same thing you do.
Right.
There's a case where a guy was fired for being a drug user, and he works in a drug-free workplace. And he said, you know, nobody gave him the handbook. Well, there's signs all over the building saying, and he won.
Right.
So these kind of abuses have cost businesses. So, and at the same time, we're going to have to raise the rates for businesses. They're going to go from 5.4% to 6.4% because we are so far in the hole on unemployment comp. So if we're going to raise, well, not really raise taxes, but kind of redistribute the fees, then we also have to give you some relief so that at least you have a fair level playing field when it comes to claims. We're also going to change the formula so that the businesses who commit, who lay off the most people are going to have to pay a higher rate than those that lay off or fire very few people. So we're going to have a lot of unhappy business people too. Our formula shows that 79% of the businesses will be okay, and 21% of the businesses will see a big jump. So if you want a bill that's guaranteed to make every single person mad, I got it.
Thank you for your help.
Commissioner Bussell.
Good morning. My name is Larry Bussell. I'm a county commissioner, but I'm also the chairman of the Port Authority, Manatee County Port Authority. I'm not sure that I know which of the committee assignments that you've mentioned, all of you this morning, might apply to ports, but if I assume that there's no chance of getting money for ports in Florida, then maybe there's some regulatory or incentives that you can think of as you look for ways to create jobs, because Port Manatee, and everybody says this, but we haven't done anything to make it happen. It's a jewel in the rough. It's a place where jobs can be created almost today if we had the right things in process. So I ask you to, as you go back and work in Tallahassee, think of ways that you can incentivize and make it easier for the ports to do what we have to do. Thank you.
Bennett or Senator Dieter?
One of the things we're looking at, I got the idea from Joe McClash a couple of years ago when you all created the district up there, okay, and being able to do that. One of the things we're looking for is finding ways that we can take an area like the port and get it all pre-approved. So when you're recruiting a company from out of state or out of the country, you can say, no, all you need is a blueprint. Okay, we've already got the land use. You can start moving dirt tomorrow morning. We'll catch up with the rest of it. We have to make sure that they understand Florida is truly open for business. And what happens is we lost a manufacturing plant to Georgia, and when they came down and talking to Enterprise Florida, and they talking about the permitting process of when they could start, and they were predicting at that time somewhere around 2 to 2.5 years to get it through our regulatory bureaucracy. And literally Georgia told them, start digging. Okay, literally told them, you guys go ahead and start moving dirt, we'll catch up the permits. Okay, so we've lost that business. And what we should be doing is taking areas like the port, getting all of the zoning out of the way, all the comp plan members, everything out of the way, and say, okay, this spot right here is ready to start moving tomorrow morning. All he needs to do is bring us a blueprint. We can have your blueprint approved in 30 days and we can start moving. That way they know that the port is truly open for business, and that would save a lot of people, a lot of time, and a lot of money, and let them know it's open. So that's one of the things we're going to be looking at. Nancy, did you have something?
No, I'm good.
No more questions, but Senator Bennett, did you want to chat about consolidation, maybe what the governor's planning and what's going on in the Senate?
Sure. Some of the things we had talked about, and let me say it now. This is interesting, my cheat sheet here. And you need a cheat sheet when you start following some of the duplicate regulation that we have. If you have a water problem and you're going to do development, right now you have to deal with Water and Soil District, you have to deal with DEP, the Water Management Districts, the Basin Boards, the Florida Department of Transportation, the Regional Planning Commission, DCA, then of course I forgot about the Manatee DEP and the local government, okay? And all this is government-paid engineers reviewing government-paid engineers, reviewing government-paid engineers. They're all on your payroll, and they're all doing the identical thing. And it's not even their area of expertise. We have seen where we have had a water problem, and DEP has approved it, the water management districts have approved it, and the Florida Department of Transportation shoots it down because of some water problem. Okay? So some of the things that we're going to change this year is the level of competency that's as high as you can go. So if we decide it's going to be a water problem and Manatee County has people qualified in DEP that they can handle that problem, unless they ask for assistance from the state of Florida, it's not going to go from the state of Florida. If it's a DEP problem, it's going to be a DEP problem. It's not going to be a Florida Department of Transportation problem or a DCA problem. A lot of people were concerned when the governor was campaigning, he was talking about getting rid of DCA. We finally convinced him you cannot get rid of DCA because we have to have a referee. You have to have a referee to settle the issues between the city of Bradenton and Manatee County, between Manatee County and Sarasota County, Manatee County and Hillsborough County, when you have these regional things. But when it comes to planning, Manatee County's got some extremely competent people down there. They should not have to send every little tiny comp plan amendment up to the state of Florida. It should not be any of the state of Florida's business what Mayor Poston wants to do in downtown Bradenton. Downtown Bradenton is competent. Now, if he's got a hassle with the county over it, and they need a referee, rather than hiring a bunch of attorneys, there should be some place that they can appeal, and that's what we would like to do, DCA. So you're going to see a lot of consolidation. You're going to see a lot of things that are going to be tough in the budget, a lot of things that we cannot affect in the budget. If budget in Washington changes on Medicare, that affects our Medicaid. If they expand that, the Obamacare could add as much as $6 billion, or between $6 and $14 billion a year to the cost of our Medicaid in the state of Florida. So there's a lot of things that get done at the federal level. You know, the other day I had read a guest editorial, I'm sure you saw it, where I mentioned that we should, on a federal level, do exactly what we do on a state level. Quit spending money we do not have. Here they are talking about raising the national debt limit from 14 trillion to 15 trillion. And nobody's talking about, well, let's quit spending money. It's absolutely insane. And I made the comment, we should be looking even at our own projects where there's high-speed rail, and I said Wares Creek. I did not mean to say I want to kill Wares Creek. Hell, I fought and got money for Wares Creek. But what we should not be doing is spending money, whether it's on a state level or a federal level, that we don't have without going back and looking at cutting spending. When your credit card maxes out, the credit card company doesn't increase your limit. Okay? You got to quit spending. And that's exactly what we should be doing. So it's going to be an interesting year. This is something I know that Senator Dieter's been working on for years, trying to understand why we are funding all of these multiple agencies that do the exact same thing, and we're not getting the money down to the kid. So I think you're going to see this is a hell of a good crisis, and we shouldn't let it go to waste. Okay? It really shouldn't. And now is the time to cut back on a lot of these expenses and quit spending money we don't have, whether it's in the state of Florida or the federal government or even your local government. That'll be the year.
Casey Colburn with the Kirk Pinkerton Law Firm. Just have a question for Senator Bennett. What's wrong with hiring a bunch of lawyers when the county and the city have no, but seriously, some of you we've already spoken to on behalf of the shopping center industry, which are clients of ours, and one of the biggest issues and biggest things that the business community had to spend money on last year, the chamber was very involved with it, was Amendment 4. Think of all the millions and millions of dollars that were spent on that issue that could have been put into these businesses, employees or investing in their companies. What is going to happen this year, what can happen on petition and constitutional amendment reform? And happy to ask any of the legislators to respond to that.
We already did that. I mean, now it calls for 60% of the vote to pass. Are you talking about the constitutional amendment problems?
It's not just the 60%. The 60% was what helped us with Amendment 4. Right. But frankly, the methodology of gaining petitions, paid signature gatherers, right. Petitioning on private property where judges have said that your shopping center is the public realm and you have to allow people that want to put you out of business onto your property to accept signatures, those kind of things. What can the legislature do, and what have you seen from the legislative side to reform that industry, which is amending our Constitution to get things that couldn't get through the legislative process?
Well, frankly, we can do those through bills, and I didn't realize that you had to let everybody on, stand in front of Walmart or Publix and take signatures. I thought you got to decide that yourself, because I know in the past some of them didn't let the Salvation Army collect. So we've seen that problem before with restaurants and hotels. I mean, before anybody could walk through a hotel, and if you were selling pizzas or something, you could put flyers under everybody's door, and the hotel owner wasn't allowed to stop you. So we were able to fix that, and we can do the same for shopping centers. I wasn't aware of the problem, so now that we are, it's fixable.
Thank you.
I'll be going to Washington next week with the Minnesota League of Cities, the State League of Cities, and one of the things we're looking at is the EPA is placing new nutrient levels on the water levels in Florida, and it could be devastating. This is going to affect cities, counties, and agriculture. I've been told that it cost us $18 million that we do not have. You know, they're saying that we have phosphorus in our water, which comes from the state is full of that. But also at the same time, at the state level, like right now, the city of Bradenton has invested a lot of money into water treatment plant to where we purify our water after we're done using it. That it's as clean as it was before we got it. And we try to use that reuse water. We try to either sell it or give it away, which is the proper thing to do. And that their state is looking at, it's either DEP or SWIFMUD or possibly both of them are looking at regulating that water and making us put it back in the river at the same time that the DEP is saying if you put it in the river, you have to invest another $18 million. So we're kind of the pickle in the middle on this one. And I was wondering if any of you can are aware of it, or if you can keep an eye on this for us.
Representative Pilon.
Oh, we're very aware of all of it, and if all of you aren't, I know there's some folks here that are. First of all, you've got a kind of a two-part situation there, the numeric content. It was a lawsuit that was taken up by an environmental group that said that the state of Florida was not doing enough or quick enough to control the pollutant loads in our waterways. So they won, and there's a consent order. Well, every agency in the state of Florida and every group in the state of Florida is fighting it. You're absolutely correct. There's no way, number one, that you can ever comply with their standards. Number two, it will affect not only wastewater treatment plants, it will affect agriculture. The difference is, try to put it in a nutshell for you, I agree with you, just so everybody else knows, that we have such varying water bodies in the state of Florida. There are aquifers, there are streams. Look at ag, for example, so important in Manatee County. What normally flows into a stream? Well, it won't make any difference if they slap a number on it. Florida has been dealing with total maximum daily loads and under statute. We're going to continue to do that. We've got a little breathing room from EPA. The battle is not over. Bottom line is it's under the Clean Water Act. The state of Florida doesn't have to abide by it at all. What's the other side of that? They don't give you any money from the feds. So yes, we're on your side. The entire legislature is on your side. The entire state government is on the side of the cities, the counties, and the ag industry and everybody else. Your question about reuse, yes, I'm very familiar with it. The bills are coming forward. It's not the Water Management District that wants to control it. There are external folks in there that are trying to create a debate as to whether reuse water is a resource or a commodity. It's been, in my opinion, dealing with that for many, many years. You already are regulated, your water use permits regulated. It's something that, yes, it's already a water of this, it's not yours, it's a water of the people, but it's not two waters of the people. So I hear you from that point. I'm very intent on making sure that that's doesn't go that way.
Last question.
My passion is early education. I think I see every day the results of what can happen when we don't have educated people. My question to legislators is voluntary pre-K. In my former life, I was a CPA and was big on measurement. And we've had VBK now for a number of years, which I believe in providing equal opportunities at a very early age. By 75% has been formed. And my question is to any of the legislators is, how are we doing with VBK? Who's measuring it, and should we be spending more on it?
It is working. It's preparing our kids for kindergarten. It's also very expensive. It's about $500 million a year just for 4-year-olds. So are we looking to expand that this year in this financial climate? No, we're not. We're trying to hold education harmless from cuts, as we have done for the past couple of years. They've made out better than everyone else. We're just trying to keep their head above water, but there is no expansion going on in that area. And to talk about education and business certainly go together. As I said earlier, we're going to make sure that we can provide an educated workforce. It's the best way to get businesses here. Not only do they need the workers, but they have their own families, and they want to make sure that they're going to good schools. So it benefits all of us to have a real strong K through 12 and university system in place, which I think we do. We're just going to have to try to maintain it. And the thing that I like to focus on is there's a lot of chatter about recruiting businesses to the state of Florida. Well, everybody in this room probably owns a business. So I don't think we should really go crazy recruiting competitors for businesses that already exist. I think we need to do recruiting, but we also need to help the businesses that have already invested in our state to do business internationally and globally. It's a global economy, and Enterprise Florida goes a long way to helping small businesses. There's a company in Fort Myers that I visited. They make boat docks. They have 20 employees, and thanks to Enterprise Florida showing them how to do business internationally, this little guy in Fort Myers is now selling to Amsterdam, South Africa, Abu Dhabi, and all over the world, and never in his wildest dreams did he think he could be an international businessman. But this is the direction that the world is going, and that's what I think brings hope to our state. Just expand our horizons and don't lose faith and keep your business going, and hopefully the state government will be able to help you to go internationally, because I think that's a great way to do business. So we're not just talking pie in the sky, we have real world solutions, and I think by the end of 2011, we're all going to be in a better place. Thanks.
Those are great comments, and I want to thank our legislative delegation for coming by and